Okay. Hey, guess what? The NFC West doesn't look so tough to me. There might be a shot. I'm Joe Tarosian, and this is RamView.
It's hot out there, but let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Headline,
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Tarosian, and this is RamView, the May the 3rd, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident? Need help? Got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law Firm, that's one word, KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues? Get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. Okay. We are, almost a week since the start of the draft, right? It's Wednesday, and we're almost a week removed from the draft, and everything's falling into place, and you kind of know who you got, and it's really interesting to see all the players the Rams have signed, and it's amazing. One of the things I like about the UDFA period, the signing the undrafted free agent, is everyone saying, oh, man, they got a steal here. Oh, this guy's going to be, this guy's going to be great. And I'm thinking, there were 259 players drafted, and this guy wasn't one of the 259 drafted. And I understand things come up, numbers game, too many cornerbacks in the room, and everything. I understand all that. But yeah, everyone that the Rams signed and anyone else signs, oh, man, they got a steal here, this undrafted free agent. So as I was looking at this again, and I'm trying to be optimistic here, and I see things where people are saying the Rams are tanking. Yeah, that's just crazy talk. The Rams aren't tanking. You could say they're being crazy. You don't know what they're doing sometimes. You're trying to figure it out. Really hard to stay one step ahead of Les Snead and Sean McVay. That I still stick by what I said. I said, this is a team that can go 7-10. This is a team that can go 10-7. I'll stick by that. I firmly believe that. And offensively, we know they're going to be okay. Even though they drafted a few guys on the offensive line, we know that they had some depth on that offensive line, and they added a couple of pieces in McClendon and of course Avila, and so there's depth there. So the offensive line is okay. The wide receivers are okay. They've added depth at running back. It'll be interesting to see how Davis Allen develops into the next Tyler Higbee, but you throw the injuries out, and offensively, if everything stays on track, the Rams could win 10 games. And of course, if they only win 7, I think it won't be because of the offense. It'll be because of the defense. This is a defense that is really lacking any experience. I mean, literally the most experienced players you have are Aaron Donald and Ernest Jones. And so, you need a little more talent on defense sometimes, especially in the secondary, where people are really high on Tre'Vius Hodges Tomlinson, but he's going to need some experience, right? He's going to make a few moments, and everyone's going to hate him, right? Like I think everyone's going to kind of turn around on Darian Kendrick, because I think Darian Kendrick is a somewhat similar corner, very combative, very feisty, so to speak, and I think he had to pay his dues, and then they come back more experienced. And I think the Rams are going to do that, but there is talent there. It would be nice, though, if they could help that secondary by finding ways to get to the quarterback and to take pressure off these DBs. I know it's so elementary to say it, right? It's so easy to say, hey, just get to the quarterback. But it was almost like an elementary school playground where the Rams got bullied all of last year by the likes of Andy Dalton and Colt McCoy and Geno Smith. And God bless Geno Smith. I think Geno Smith's a good quarterback, but Geno Smith should not be beating you like he beat the Rams twice last year. So the Rams have to find a way to get to the quarterback. And the first thing, one of the things that was really struggling last year, and I had coaches I knew tell me, is they were playing so far off the ball that even the players they had last year, Leonard Floyd and others at different times, they didn't have that extra split second, that extra half second to get to the quarterback, because the Rams played so far off the ball. And when like I said, they were getting carved up by Andy Dalton and Colt McCoy, you're not going to get a lot of sacks. So you want to see them get a little more, come up on the ball a little more. But of course, if they could find a way to get to the quarterback, it would be really good. And so that Rams edge room of edge rushers was very thin heading into last Thursday's draft. Michael Hoyt, Daniel Hardy, Keir Thomas, and a dude named Zach Von Valkenburg, and he's more of a special teamer. And so what did the Rams do? They drafted Byron Young, the dude out of Tennessee that everyone's falling in love with even before they see him play. Nick Hampton out of App State, Ochoan Mathis, who seemed to be a little more flexible in college. They drafted him in terms of he could play off ball as well. And then Matthew Jester out of Princeton, they signed him as an undrafted free agent. And so these are the guys that are going to be competing on the edge. And it looks interesting. You got to figure Hoyt, Hardy, Young, Hampton, they're going to be on this roster, maybe Mathis, and maybe the other, or maybe Keir Thomas. Keir Thomas has flirted on the edges for a long time on this team, and you got to figure this is it for him, right? He's really got to establish himself this year, or we're just moving on. And you really want to see if Daniel Hardy's developed. The talk about Michael Hoyt, I went and double checked some of that he's 6'4", 310. This is a guy that could put his hand in the dirt and move back to the interior part of the line as a defensive end. And that's still a possibility, but he's doing all of his offseason workouts to gain experience at the edge. And that's cool, because if they need to move him there, they could, and it's a familiar position. Being put on the edge was a new thing for him. And so we'll see. And again, the other thing we forget is that we want the sacks. We want the sacks, but they're called the edge for the reason is because they got to hold the edge against the run. And that was really what Leonard Floyd did best. And I think what we're gonna want to see from these guys, from a Hoyt and Byron Young, because that's not the complete part of his package, Nick Hampton, and even Daniel Hardy's, we want to see them develop into to quality edge players that can hold the edge as well and keep the line of scrimmage extended so teams can't turn the corner on them. Leonard Floyd, on the other hand, also, as I've been thinking about this, is Leonard Floyd still a free agent? It said the Packers might have interest in Leonard Floyd. I wouldn't have any interest in Leonard Floyd at the estimated 13 rocks a year he's supposed to be making. I wouldn't pay Leonard Floyd 13 rocks, not in the least. But if we get to June 1st or June and no one signed this guy yet, would you bring him back to the Rams for 3 rocks? Yeah, I would. I think Leonard Floyd's presence with these edge players would make all the difference in allowing the Byron Youngs, the Nick Hamptons to develop, Michael Hoyt to develop, Daniel Hardy to develop. And it would be a really cool thing if he'd be willing to come back for that. I wouldn't pay him anything more than that, but he's floating around out there. And a lot of the rosters are set, and teams that are going to make a move, I don't think anyone's desperate enough to pay over $10 million for somebody that hasn't already been signed. And so, keep a finger crossed, keep your eyes out. Maybe, possibly, could Leonard Floyd come back? And as you look at what the Rams situation is, the improvements along the depth pieces along the offensive line, I think they could have come back with, I know a lot of people out there disagree with me. If the line is healthy, they could have come back with the same offensive line they had last year, run Noteboom left tackle, Alaric Jackson maybe at left guard, Coleman Shelton at right guard, Brian Allen at center, and Havenstein, of course, at right tackle, and then kept the depth pieces of Logan Bruss, Tremaine Ankrum, and some of these guys, and they would have had some depth along this offensive line. Not great, but some depth. But by drafting Avila, who everybody loves, and you get why they love him, and Warren McClendon, now they've really got depth there. So you feel good about the offensive line, unless there's another Hiroshima bomb dropped in that room of injuries. You just can't see them having a bad year. They have the receivers. Everyone's really high, and then again, I understand everyone gets the steal, right? There's content people talking Seahawk football and Steeler football and Jet football, saying, "Oh man, this guy we got in the 8th round, man. Or this guy we got in the 6th round, dude. Oh, this guy's everything." And everyone's really in love with Puka Nacua out of BYU right now. And you know what? I saw his highlight film, and come on, yeah, I'm in love with him too, right? I think he looks great, and if he can be a contributor, then you're talking Van Jefferson, who's going to want to play hard to get that second contract somewhere, and Cooper Kupp, of course. And then you're dealing with Atwell and Scarron. The Rams have some pieces in that wide receiver room, and we haven't even talked about Lance McCutcheon yet. And then, of course, Nakua and all the other players they signed as undrafted free agents. And we'll talk about Xavier Smith and some of those guys later on through the spring and early summer when things slow down a little bit. The interesting thing is, will there be room? You don't draft Nakua unless you want him to make this roster. And if he makes the roster, is the dance with Tutu Atwell over? Is Ben Skoranek moved on? You wonder what's going to happen there. And I like Skoranek as a utility guy more than I do necessarily as a wideout. Fullback last year, tight end, because he can block and he'd be someone to keep an eye on. But with all those pieces in place, offensively, it's just the defense. If the defense can figure out a way, I don't know, to be a little more aggressive and so passive, you're going to get torched anyway. All these guys are young. You're going to get torched. So how about just showing a little aggressiveness and giving your edge guys that you drafted a chance to eat, so to speak, and get to the quarterback? Because if you could do those things, let's look at the NFC West. Let's the flavor of the month right now is the Seahawks. I was watching the Seahawks draft all these guys: Witherspoon, Charbonnet, Derek Evans, the guy from Auburn. My mind's blanking. I think it's Derek Evans. No, it's not Derek Evans. What is it? Derek Smith? No, he was the Clipper guy. My mind's drawing a blank. But we know they drafted really well, and so you're looking at them, and they drafted really well last year, and you're thinking, man, this team. How do you match up against this team? But I will say the Seahawks are vulnerable along the interior of their offensive line. They signed Evan Brown to a contract. He played guard last year for Detroit, and they're moving back to his more natural position of center. But he's replacing Austin Blythe, who played for the Rams a few years ago, and Blythe was one of the lowest ranked centers in the league, and they really haven't replaced him with a true NFL center. And it'll be interesting to see how Evan Brown does. And so I think the Seahawks are vulnerable offensively. On the other side, they didn't really address their issue of their interior defense, not in the least. They did not address it. And you might want to take a look at that, in fact, because they drafted Witherspoon. They drafted Charbonnet. They drafted Smith-Njigba. Derek Hall out of Auburn. I'm sorry, that was his name. I had to look that up. It was driving me crazy. They drafted those guys. They didn't draft those interior bubbas, and they could be really vulnerable. Our new Rams offensive line, a little more aggressive, a little more of a push, and doesn't make any difference how good your back seven are if you can't stop the run, right? You can't stop the run, and the Rams are setting themselves up to where maybe it looks like they're really going to pound the ball this year. And that would open things up, of course, for Stafford. So the Seahawks feel vulnerable. They did draft a guy out of Mississippi State, Cameron Young, but they drafted him late, 5th round, 6th round, 4th round, somewhere in there. It's going to take him time. So they're vulnerable up the gut. The 49ers, it's real simple with the 49ers. They don't have a quarterback. They signed Kyle Allen today, or Brandon Allen today, the former Ram. And, there's Brandon Allen, there's Kyle Allen, right? Both of them are career backups. But the Rams version was Brandon Allen. He had all those years with Zach Taylor and Cincy as well. But They signed him today, along with, they got Sam Darnold, they got Trey Lance, and Brock Purdy's mending. And it's going to take them a while to figure out who their quarterback's going to be until Purdy is ready to go. And then you look at everything else. I say this every year, but Trent Williams keeps getting older. He just keeps getting better. Is he Andrew Whitworth type? Is he going to play till he's 40? Trent Williams is going to be 35 and playing left tackle this year. And again, the only reason I bring that up is because he is 35. He's playing left tackle. He could age pretty quick. And also he's a 49er, so he can have a stretch where he twists a knee and is gone for 4 weeks, right? That's basically the 49er way. But the 49ers also lost at right tackle. They lost Matt McGlinchey. I think he signed as a free agent with the Broncos, and he's gone. And he was a pretty solid right tackle, and they're replacing him with a guy they drafted in 2020 named Colton McKivitz. And not saying he's bad, but again, the 49ers might be vulnerable along that offensive line if a team can get a pass rush. You get a pass rush, it might disrupt Brock Purdy and his little system there. And then you also look, they could have some trouble in the interior of their offensive line as well, although it's not as obvious in terms of, say, right tackle or maybe an aging. I can't say he's aging. Trent Williams is not aging. He's 35, but he doesn't seem to show any signs of aging. But the 49ers could be vulnerable. The Cardinals, of course, we know what the Cardinals are, right? It's a curse to be a Cardinal. Someone says they're in the best position to get Caleb Williams next year, and they'll just figure out a way to move off Kyler Murray. And if they have that opportunity, yeah, of course they should. But it's a curse to be a Cardinal. Whether you're Matt Leinart, Josh Rosen, Kyler Murray, it's a curse, right? Neil Lomax. Do you remember Neil Lomax when they were in St. Louis? And I think he had one season with them when they were in Phoenix. Neil Lomax, football players play all the time, and then later in life they get their hip replacement. Neil Lomax had his hip replacement, after one season or after a season in Phoenix, and he had about 4 or 5 years in the NFL. Actually, more like 7, 8, and he wasn't a bad quarterback, but they spent 1 year in Phoenix, and he needs hip replacement. His career is over. They draft Tim Rosebach. He plays 1 year for them, actually does pretty good, but then decides he wants to be a rodeo guy. You just can't win as a quarterback playing for the Cardinals. It's a curse to be a Cardinal, and Kyler Murray's down now. So they get the coach. They got the coach. They got the DC from Philly. I think Gannon, yeah, and then and now Kyler Murray's gone until maybe November. You got a 37-year-old. This surprised me. Colt McCoy is going to be holding down the fort. Colt McCoy is 37 years old, and that could be really rough. I mean, unless he's going against Raheem Morris defense in 2022, where you won't touch him and you'll be 10 yards off his receivers. But most teams probably won't do that. But Colt McCoy is going to be 37. He's had concussion issues. He's been bounced around. He's really worked out a really nice career. But at 37, man, he might be looking to move on. And then, of course, they've got David Blau, and they drafted Clayton Tune. In fact, you look at the Cardinals draft. I think I said this. The Cardinals draft looks a lot like the Rams mock drafts with some of the players they drafted. So they're vulnerable there. The Cardinals are. Paris Johnson Jr. was a great draft pick. Line him up next to Humphreys as the other tackle, and they're going to be in some good shape. And their offensive line is not as bad as some think. But defensively, they're not stopping the run. As of now, they're not getting to the quarterback unless B.J. Ojulari really develops right away into an edge guy that's going to get the quarterback. And when I see who's in their secondary, I start to feel a whole lot better about the Rams secondary. Plus, Budda Baker wants out. And so, yeah. So the Cardinals are vulnerable. We know that. And if the Rams could find a way to pick off 2 wins against the Cardinals and at least split with the 49ers and the Seahawks, that's a 4-2 record right there. And then it makes 10 wins really a real possibility. We just got to see how this defense develops, or if they're going to add any wrinkles to it. Are they going to give these guys a chance to develop and really eat, so to speak? All right, I'm Joe Terosian. Oh, real quick here. The Jets signed Randall Cobb. I wasn't sure. if that was Randall Cobb, the Packer, the former Packer, or Randall Tex Cobb, the former boxer, because they both seem as beaten up and as old as one another. And so it is Randall Cobb, the wide receiver, Jets, and I think he played at Tennessee. Loved Randall Cobb when he was young, but have Aaron Rodgers, Randall Cobb will travel, and so he signed with the Jets. So that'll be interesting to see. Again, Joe Terroza, apologized for the cough fit earlier. Wasn't coughing all day. Had that cough fit to start the show. Took my Allegra. Anyway, we're okay. I was a sports writer for 21 years, and I worked for a few newspapers and magazines and websites. I was one of the co-founders at Mid-Valley Sports, and they cover the NFL right now. Tim Peterson, Dwayne Barker, and you can check them out at midvalleysports.com. I'm giving that for free. They get that for free. They cover the Chargers. They're in the room with the Chargers. I do RamView. And I write books. And I don't have a book handy here, but I know my book purchases have actually gone up. And I want to say thank you for those that have supported me. And but yeah, I do RamView and I do write books because I support myself to keep up with my day job, which is I pastor a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith Nazarene. And it's right here online, Burbank Faith Virtual. You can find that channel right here on YouTube. It's also on social media on Facebook, and we post links on Instagram and Twitter and our own website, burbankfaithvirtual.com. You can check those out and everything. So I think we got that in. Yeah, 21 years sports writer. I do have some stories. I don't know if I'm appropriate to share some of those stories, but I do have a few stories. It was fun. So let's check out some stuff here real quick. Want to wish former Rams defensive tackle Cody Jones a happy birthday today. He's 72. And Cody Jones, real interesting story. It's like when I started I picked up the Rams mid-season 1972 as a kid. And my first full season with the Rams was 73. And Cody Jones was always there. He was drafted, didn't play his rookie year, injury, taxi squad, and everything. But all the way through finishing my high school years, Cody Jones was a Ram. I kind of grew up with Cody Jones, it feels like. He was the young guy. 6'5", 243. I mean, that's great height, but 243 along the defensive line just seems he'd be an edge rusher today. And he could get the quarterback a little bit. But Cody Jones was drafted by the Rams, 5th round, 129 overall in 1973 out of San Jose State. And the pick, because some of the records are a little bit shady or a little bit questionable, slightly. This isn't a major reach. But the pick was likely acquired in 1971 when the Rams traded Tommy Mason, kind of a washed-up running back, to the Redskins, rejoined him with Joyne Allen, the whole Ramskins thing. And they got back a 5th-round pick 2 years later. And Cody Jones was with the Rams for 10 seasons. He missed 73. In 79, he ruptured an Achilles, so he missed the Super Bowl. But he was a starter, rotational guy. Larry Brooks, Merlin Olsen, and later Mike Fanning, and he's kept rotating in and out there. Played some defensive end a little bit. And he actually, in 1978, had 7.5 sacks, and he played in the 1978 Pro Bowl. All told with the Rams, he recorded 25 sacks and was pretty much a stalwart there. He was maybe the 70s version of Reggie Doss, if that's it, not in size-wise, but just in terms of performance. Really great value for a 5th-round pick taken at number 129 for a broken-down running back. So yeah, happy birthday, Cody Jones. Some of us, we do remember you and appreciate what you did. Also, on this day in Rams history was the NFL draft. And on this day, the Rams drafted Bob Brzezinski, Billy Waddy, Wendell Tyler, and Vince Ferragamo. And think about all those names. They were all starters and contributors in the Super Bowl within three seasons later, 1979. They were all starters in that Super Bowl. In that same draft, they also owned the number 51 overall pick in the 2nd round. And so what they did was they took that number 51 overall pick. This is on this day in 1977, 46 years ago. They took that 51st overall pick in the 2nd round and matched it with Jeff Reese, who was a backup offensive lineman. And they sent that to the Seattle Seahawks to move up 20 spots to number 31. Now, the Seahawks must have really thought Jeff Reese was something special. Now, it's interesting. Jeff Reese played at Washington State and had been a third-round pick of the Rams a couple seasons before, got hurt in the All-Star game, never really developed. And I don't know if they were envisioning him to be Rick Saul's replacement because when Doug Smith came along, Doug Smith was low in the totem pole. But Jeff Reese had the kind of like the receding hairline, the big mutton chops. And for some reason, Seattle really liked him. And they took him in the 51st pick and let the Rams move up to number 31. And with that number 31 overall pick, the Rams took a guy named Nolan Cromwell. Remember Nolan Cromwell? Nolan Cromwell, after playing his first 2 seasons in college as a free safety at Kansas, he was moved to quarterback and had some big rushing games. Wasn't much of a thrower. Everyone was running in those 70s, wishbone, veer, option type of stuff. And that's the kind of quarterback he was. And if you remember Nolan Cromwell, he was a great athlete. Nolan Cromwell played some cornerback for the Rams as well as free safety and everything else. And it was interesting that the Rams would make that move because they drafted him. They didn't draft him as a quarterback. They drafted him as a DB, likely safety, because they had Monty Jackson on the roster. Monty Jackson was coming off an all-pro year. Rod Perry and Pat Thomas were developing, so the Rams were set at corner. And then their safety room featured Dave Elmendorf and Bill Simpson, and both were in their primes. Bill Simpson had an all-pro season still in front of him, and of course, Elmendorf was solid all 9 years he played for the Rams. The only guy that was on his way out heading into 1977 was Steve Priest. Priest gave the Rams 5 great years, great holder. He did kind of blow a play in the playoffs in 73, which we won't say anything about. But the room was full. The secondary was solid. And yet Don Klosterman, how great Don Klosterman was, saw an opportunity to move 20 spaces up in the draft and go and get Nolan Cromwell on this day in 1977. And Cromwell ended up playing in 4 Pro Bowls, was a 3-time All-Pro, plus one time he was second-team All-Pro. Maybe if he had another Super Bowl appearance, I think Mud Bowl, thinking the NFC title loss against Dallas in 78, maybe if he had another Super Bowl appearance, or maybe if he holds on to the pick 6 in Super Bowl 14 and the Rams win that game, he'd probably already be in the Hall of Fame. Is he Hall of Fame worthy? Yeah, I think Nolan Cromwell is Hall of Fame worthy. If we're getting close to getting Eddie Mater in, that would be Cromwell. For our generation or the next generation. And I could see him getting in someplace, again, down the road. Although he's 68 now, he's finished playing in, 1987, 1988. But Nolan Cromwell is pretty special. Getting back to Jeff Reese, he was a 3rd-round pick, 61 overall out of Washington State of the Rams in 75. He was injured in the college all-star game. And I think that one was the last one played that ended in a rainstorm. And, of course, he had the bad luck of injuring his knee in that. He appeared in 14 games for the Rams in 76. He wore number 54. You see any old highlights. But he was a special team guy. And in Seattle, he only played 3 games in 77 before it just didn't work out. I think he was in camp with the Colts in 78, and it never really worked out for him. With the 51st pick, the Seahawks took a guy named Pete Cronin out of Boston College. He was a special teamer for 9 years in the NFL and did win a ring with the Redskins in Super Bowl 17. So, cool. We got that part broken down there. I wanted to talk real quick about that Rams wide receiver room. Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Ben Skoranek, Tutu Atwell, Lance McCutcheon, and, of course, Austin Trammell and Puka Nacua, who was the draft pick, Tyler Hudson, Sam Smith, Sam James and Xavier Smith, and Braxton Burmeister, who was the San Diego State backup quarterback, real journeyman quarterback. They're converting him to wide receiver. So he has practice squad written all over him. Xavier Smith is a player the Rams actually interviewed and signed as an undrafted free agent out of Florida A&M. He's another short guy, but he's a burner, and you're interested in what's going to happen with him. Tyler Hudson, Sam James, you don't know too much. Already people are creating buzz on Nacua. I figure Austin Trammell to me is just a transitional player. So to me, I think Nacua is the guy that would bump into the room next to Lance McCutcheon, Atwell, Skoranek, Van Jefferson, and Cup. And it will be interesting. It will be interesting because I still think McCutcheon is the contested catch guy. Atwell's the burner. Ben Skoranek is the utility guy that won't just play wide receiver. Of course, we know who Cooper Kupp is. The interesting one is, what does Van Jefferson become? Is Van Jefferson a legitimate 2, or was he this nice guy number 3? We never really got to find out because everything was messed up last year with the quarterbacks and injuries. What is Van Jefferson? And that's really fascinating because there are moments we see Van Jefferson and we think, oh man, what a great pick. And it was a great pick. It has paid off. But the question comes, are you willing to give Van Jefferson a second contract? And do you get the feeling the Rams are going to do that? I just don't know. If Nacua develops in any way, the way everyone is dreaming he's going to develop, and I know it's crazy. You watch the highlights, you like it, but you don't want to put that Cooper Kupp stuff on him. But yeah, we know what Skoranek is. We're learning what Atwell is. We know what Lance McCutcheon's role is supposed to be. Tyler Hudson, Sam James, I don't know about those guys. Xavier Smith, Braxton Burmeister, those guys could be practice squad players. But what's really Van Jefferson? He will be the number 2 going into this year, but is he number 2? Is he number 2 material, right? And if I would guess, if Nacua develops in any way close to what they think he is, Jefferson's gone, because Jefferson is not a burner. He's got good speed, but he doesn't have great speed. And it could be bye-bye Van Jefferson. He feels to me like that this is it for him. I don't think there's going to be a deal. I think he'll be on the roster barring an injury opening day. But it is interesting to see. All right, real quick here, I wanted to hit on who the Rams draft picks are, and we'll talk again about these guys. Steve Avila, guard, likely center. Some folks are already saying he could be the starting center this year. I think that would be a waste to make him starting center this year unless you cut Brian Allen now. I just don't see that because you're still paying Brian Allen money. You want to cut Brian Allen and then move Avila to guard, fine. But I just don't see you're going to keep Brian Allen on the roster with his money, with his contract, and not have him as a starter. He's really going to have to play really horrible for the Rams not to Brian Allen's going to be a starter, or he's not going to be on the team. Byron Young, edge. Kobe Turner is really interesting. I did hear another podcast. I did hear a Rams podcast where it said Kobe Turner's nickname is the Conductor. What a cool name, right? The Conductor. Kobe the Conductor Turner. Okay, that sounds really cool. Stetson Bennett's the only draft pick I wasn't crazy about. Nick Hampton, I did like that one. Warren McClendon, possible replacement for Havenstein in a couple years. Davis Allen feels like a mirror image of a younger Tyler Higbee. Puka Nacua we talked about. And then the guy I heard a lot of buzz about, and I wasn't talking too much about corners this week, is Trevius Hodges Tomlinson. I've heard more than one person, this guy, man, he should have gone in the 2nd or 3rd round. He's the steal of the draft. I hope he's the steal of the draft. I really do. I'm good with 5'8" corners. I really am. I saw 5'8" corners my whole life. Rod Perry and Pat Thomas do an amazing job against players like Swan and Stallworth and other receivers. Height doesn't mean anything to me, especially if they're which Hodges Tomlinson is. Yeah, if he translates to the nickel guy that's on the inside or a boundary guy, I just hope he is what everyone says he is. But he's another one of these guys that, oh man, that's the steal of the draft. That's the steal of the draft. We can only hope so. Ochaun Mathis is the linebacker edge out of Nebraska. And of course, he's a former TCU guy, right? You got Avila TCU. You got Hodges Tomlinson TCU. You got Mathis, who played 3 years at TCU and did the transfer portal and went to Nebraska. You got Zach Evans, who played at TCU and did transfer portal, ended up at Ole Miss at running back. And so, yeah, there's a lot of TCU love. And then you had the Chargers across the parking lot there at SoFi drafting 2 TCU receivers and Max Duggan. So interesting business with TCU. You think they'd have won a national title. They say Ethan Evans is a monster at punter. I don't care. I don't care if the Rams have him, Tom Whittem, Herman Thunderfoot Weaver, just as long as he can boot it. And I want to know how he boots it out of his own end zone. I'm a little more interested in that than putting somebody inside the 20, although that would be nice. Jason Taylor. This is what I heard about Jason Taylor from Oklahoma State. Man, that is the bonus pick of the draft, man. You guys are getting something here with Jason Taylor II out of Oklahoma, man. He should have gone higher. Right? And I hope so. I really do. I hope so. I think his odds of making the team are very good as the fourth safety. And we'll see. And then Deswan, I haven't heard any corrections. Dewan Johnson, defensive tackle out of Toledo, another big guy, rotational guy, along with Kobe Turner, and match them up with Marquise Copeland, Jonah Williams, Bobby Brown, maybe Ernest Brown IV, and Laryl Murchison. Those guys all in a rotational front along the defensive line. Okay, cool. We got 35 minutes in. It was a lot of fun. I'm not going to talk about the free agent signings. Last I saw as undrafted free agents, and I got them here on my board here. I got about 26 undrafted free agents. And right now, the third quarterback on the roster is a guy out of University Tennessee Martin named Dresser Wynn. And he goes about 6'3", 215. And that's the kind of size I like at a quarterback. And we'll see how he works out. Also, he was a punter a little bit in college. So we'll see. That was kind of interesting. All right. This is RamView. And oh yeah, I didn't get this in.
It was a stone groove, my man.
Okay, it was a stone groove today. And I know I have a friend out there that likes it when I play the stone groove cut. And everything, but send us your questions. Hit like, share. Sorry if I'm having too much fun. I do have a lot of fun talking Ram football. Okay, folks, God bless. Take care, and we will see you on Cinco de Mayo. All right, take care. Bye.